What's up, everybody? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Tonight, we are drinking New Belgium Fat Tire Classic, which I don't think we've drank on the stream yet, but got a little mom and pop shop down the street for me, popped in there, saw the Fat Tire, and I was like, yeah, I haven't had that beer in a while. Let's run it back. Don't love a ton of this stuff from New Belgium. Not a big triple guy. But the Fat Tire is really delicious. Nice kind of in between of like a, lighter Pilsner and something heavier like an IPA. So kind of hit the sweet spot for me tonight. What's everyone drinking? Let some people file in here. Phil's Barbecue, sipping a Modelo. I don't know. Where's Phil's Barbecue? No beer for Gabe. He's saving his liver for New Year's Eve. Smart man. Chargers have a game the next day, so I'll be making sushi and drinking Sauvignon Blanc. That is my New Year's Eve plan. We got Four Brothers IPA, passion fruit smoothie. That sounds delicious. Buchanan's with pineapple and cranberry juice. I don't know what Buchanan's is. Was that gin? Are you a whiskey guy, Pop? People who have been in the stream know that I'm a whiskey guy. We've been angling for a Buffalo Trace sponsorship pretty much since I started streaming. It has not come through yet. Anyone in here knows anybody at Buffalo Trace? Shout them out. And maybe we can get a sponsorship here. Goose Island IPA, can't go wrong there. A little Fireball and Bud Light. Double fisting, we love that. Mother Earth Brew Cali Cream and Nitro. That sounds really good. Stone Hazy IPA, that's a good one. Elysian Space Dust. Wayne must know. Wayne's been in the stream before. He knows that Space Dust is my favorite beer on Earth. Little Makers and Coke Zero. If I'm drinking Makers, I'm probably just going to drink that straight. It's a nice bourbon. But nothing wrong with a little mixed drink with a nice little bourbon in there. We got Two Hearted Moontime Hazy IPA. Joe Rogan is sponsored by Buffalo Trace. Okay, I don't think that we get the same viewership numbers as Joe Rogan's podcast, but we're building. We'll get there. There's enough Chargers fans out there to mimic the viewership numbers of Joe Rogan. Don't we all agree? Flying Fish Brewery, South Jersey's finest. Where in South Jersey is that? My fiance is from South Jersey. All right. We got Stardust. All right, let's talk some football. How about that? I got some people in here now. All right, so yeah, Monday night game. Chargers beat the Colts 20-3, clinch a playoff spot. Obviously, a lot of people in this chat have been reading my stuff, so I've had a ton of coverage of the locker room after the victory, what it means for the playoffs. Did my final thoughts yesterday, wrote about the defense. The turnaround's been really remarkable. I mean, they've gone from like the 26th best defense in the league in EPA per play to first over the last 3 weeks. They are playing just out of their minds right now. Whether that's, stopping the run, they've shown significant improvement there. They're much better overall on first and second down, early downs. They're the best third down defense in the league over the last 3 weeks. They're the best pass defense in the league over the last 3 weeks. They're taking the ball away. Their pressure rate has increased. They had 7 sacks against the Colts. And so you're seeing everything sort of come together. And then obviously today, Joey Bosa is designated for return. He returns to practice. And in the locker room after practice, he talked to us for about 15 minutes and was really honest about everything that's gone on with this groin. They've called it a groin. It's really like a core muscle injury, all kind of in the same region. You can picture it. Adductor muscles, which are like your interior hip muscles, groins. It's all kind of connected down there. So but it was a core muscle injury, and he revealed to us that, he'd been dealing with significant issues on the left side of his core for, several years, and it had been significant for the past 2 years, and so he felt like he had been compensating for those issues on the left side of his core, and eventually his right side just gave out because he was compensating so much. He slipped on that play in the Jaguars game, tore the right side completely, already had tears and issues on the left side, and so when he went in for surgery in Philadelphia, they cleaned it all up, and he said that he hasn't felt this good in years, and he hadn't realized like how big of an issue this core muscle injury in his left side had been impacting him. He said that he's, been working out obviously all this time coming back, and that he's been putting up times that he hasn't seen since, his first 3-4 years in the league in terms of various agility drills, in terms of lifting. So, we'll see. I think he's going to play this week. I mean, he told us that he was not going to come back to practice before he felt ready to perform in a game. And so I think that's a pretty good indication. I think he's going to play this week. I think he's going to be on a limited snap count. So the Chargers obviously going to have to make a move there, probably release one of the edge rushers on the roster, maybe Derek Tuska, and then they'll elevate Jeremiah Tachu off the practice squad. So they have some depth there. That's what I think is going to happen, that they'll play Joey on a snap count. So he'll get some snaps likely this weekend, then against the Rams, likely next weekend against the Broncos, and then he'll have 2 games under his belt before he heads into the playoffs. And the way he's describing it, he's like, not, we'll see what happens over the rest of this year. Obviously, he's going to have to build back up his conditioning, get into game shape, all those things. So I don't know if we're going to see like elite production here, but he says, moving forward in the years to come, like, he said it's going to be a completely different thing. That was the quote that he said, in terms of playing football, because he was talking about like serious amounts of pain, doing things as simple as leaning down to pick something up or clicking his cleats together to knock grass off. Like all that stuff was giving him a significant amount of pain. He just learned to live with it. And now the majority of that pain is gone. He said the right side of the core is pretty much back to normal. The left side, there's some small issues, but it's miles away from what he was dealing with over the last 2 years. And he's been an elite edge rusher in that time span while he was dealing with all of this pain. So you have a defense that's coming together and peaking at the right time. They have been the best defense in football over the last 3 weeks. Last 2 games, obviously, they haven't gone up against like legitimate offenses. Tannehill got hurt early in that game. They're going up against Nick Foles. And so that it comes with a caveat, but you have a defense that's playing really well, playing really connected, and you add in one of the best pass rushers in football to that mix. And you got to feel really good about the defense heading into the playoffs. So right now, Chargers are at 6th seed. They have a chance to get to the 5th seed. If you want like the full breakdown of everything, I suggest you click the link below to my final thoughts. I went through all the possibilities. They can get to the 5th seed over the Ravens with a bunch of different scenarios. As long as they win one of the next 2 games, they can be no worse than the 6th seed. If the Ravens lose out and the Chargers win out, then the Chargers are in at that 5th spot. If the Ravens lose one game, so either against the Steelers or the Bengals in these final 2, they finish 1-1. The Chargers can get in if they win both of these games, because they would have a better conference record than the Ravens. So there are a number of avenues for the Chargers to get there. And then if the Ravens win out, the Bengals would have to lose to the Bills on Monday night. That would mean they would finish 0-2 down the stretch. They would finish 11-6. The Chargers would have to win both games to get to 11-6, and then they would also have a better conference record than the Bengals. The Bengals would finish at 7-5 conference record. The Chargers would finish at 8-4. So there's some scenarios here where the Chargers would get to the 5th seed. They're still playing for a lot because the difference between the 5th seed and the 6th seed is obviously pretty significant. They get to the 5th seed, they're going to the AFC South winner, so they're either going to Tennessee or they're going to Jacksonville. If they finish in the 6th seed, they're likely going to face the AFC North winner. That could mean a trip to the Bengals in Cincinnati. It could mean a trip to the Ravens in Baltimore, or depending on what happens, I mean, the Bills or Chiefs could both finish in that 3 spot as well. So you're talking about a pretty big difference in terms of who they would play on the road in that first round. So getting to the 5th seed is pretty important. So I'm probably going to see some questions about resting players. I don't see that happening unless they have no shot at getting to the 5th seed. And right now they have a pretty legitimate shot of getting there. Lamar Jackson still isn't practicing, and the Steelers are still in the mix. So that game Sunday night, Ravens Steelers, is a pretty big one. So we'll see what happens there. And I'm sure I'm going to get some questions about the offense. I wrote pretty extensively about it in the final thoughts. You can click there and get everything, in that link below. It's the last piece to this puzzle. The defense has come together and is playing like an elite unit. The special teams are really solid. We've talked about it on the stream before. I've written about it. Ryan Ficken deserves a ton of credit for what he's done with that unit. Josh Harris coming in at long snapper. J.K. Scott's been really good. Obviously, Cameron Dicker looks like he could be the kicker of the future. All the coverage units have really come along well. A lot of these young players are playing well. Raheem Lane's been excellent on special teams. The Gunners, Jasir Taylor and Dean Leonard have been outstanding. Nick Neiman's come along. Amen Agbangbamiga. So you've really seen these coverage units come to life. Special teams are fine. I think we said all along, as long as you're not, bottom third in the league in special teams, as long as that phase isn't losing you games, then you're fine. The defense is legit. The last piece of the puzzle is this offense. And I'm honestly surprised at this point that we're sitting here and saying that the reason the Chargers could not make a run in the playoffs might end up being the offense, because that's just where things are. And they're 17th in EPA per play. They're 25th in DVOA. They're a below average unit, however you slice it. They can't run the ball consistently enough, although they've improved in recent weeks. I wrote about it in the final thoughts. They're 10th in EPA over the last 3 weeks. And so they found a little bit of something. The second half in that Colts game, I thought they ran it well. You had the 12-yard run from Josh Kelly. You had the 16-yard run from Eckler on that one drive in the fourth quarter. So maybe they find something there. But they need more out of this offense. They need more out of Justin Herbert. They need to put him in better situations. They need to create more explosive plays. They need to be much, much, much better in the red zone. They're a bad red zone team right now, and that could change in the playoffs now that they have players back. But there's something missing with the offense, and they're getting healthy. And I know all season we've talked about, like, let's reserve judgment on Joe Lombardi. Let's reserve judgment on the offense as a whole for this season because they've had so many pieces out. It's at the point now where they have their pieces back. The only piece missing is Rashawn Slater, and that's a big piece, obviously, especially for the running game and then in pass protection. But Jamari Salyer has proved that he's capable out there. He's not an elite tackle. He's not an all-pro tackle, but he's functional. And you have the rest of your pieces on the offensive line. Trey Pipkins is still dealing with a knee issue. Corey Linsley's obviously had a number of issues this year. He's got he had a knee issue. He was out, food poisoning, concussion. But they just, for the most part, they're getting healthy as you could expect after everything they've been through this season. They have Mike Williams back. They have Keenan Allen back. They have, obviously, Josh Palmer's there. They've got Donald Parham back. Both their running backs are playing well, and Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly. Like, it has to come together here if the Chargers want to make a run in the playoffs. They've got 2 games to find the rhythm, and that's the word that everyone's been using. Joe Lombardi's used it today. Brandon Staley's used it. They have to find the rhythm that they had last year. That's better pass protection, that's better play calling, that's better run blocking, and that's finding a way to create these explosives through the schematics. They obviously are missing speed, and that's never going to go away. Like, they're not going to be able to attack the deep part of the field the way that Justin Herbert's really capable of until they add more speed to this offense. But they finished as a top 5 offense last year. And so they have to find a way to move the ball more consistently, to eliminate these negative plays, whether it's sacks or negative runs. They have to limit these penalties. There's a huge penalty in that first drive of the third quarter where Herbert hit Parham for a 30-yard gain and Trey Pipkins was called for a hold. They've got to eliminate those things, and they've got to convert in the red zone. And those are really the big issues right now in terms of them scoring the football. But that's the last piece. If they can find some rhythm here offensively over these final 2 weeks, they've got a real shot to make a run. They've got a real shot to make a run if the offense can find some semblance of a rhythm and start scoring the ball in the red zone. And that's really the only thing that I'm going to be watching over these last 2 weeks, because I feel really confident in the defense. The special teams are going to be solid. It's, can the offense find a rhythm here down the stretch? And that's really the big story over these final 2 games, outside of like playoff seeding and things like that. So that's where I'm at. Let's get to some questions. Update on Slater. So my read on Slater right now is that it's not going to happen until the playoffs, if it does happen. Probably going to write about it a little bit more in the mailbag that I'm putting together for tomorrow. But I would be very, 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 very surprised if Rashawn Slater comes back sometime in the regular season. I think they've always been targeting the playoffs as a possibility, and that would still be at the early side of his recovery window. So that's sort of where things stand with Rashawn Slater. I know Brandon Staley said they're keeping the, it's not impossible for Slater to come back, holding out hope, but I really see it as if he does come back, it would be for sometime in the playoffs. Do I think Brandon Staley has been satisfied with how the offense has been operating this year? I think he's satisfied with what the offensive staff, what Joe Lombardi, and what the players have been able to do to navigate the injuries, because they had a lot of injuries and they've been able to win football games despite those injuries. And I think it's commendable what they were able to do. But I think in terms of playoffs, playoff runs, Super Bowl contention, those things, you can't be satisfied with where the offense is at if you want to contend for a Super Bowl, because you have to be able to score the ball in the playoffs when you're going up against the best offenses in football, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals. Like, you have to be able to score with those teams. And right now, they're not at that level offensively. And so I think, like, considering all of the things that have happened this year, whether it's been Rashawn Slater going out, whether it's been Mike and Keenan being out, losing Donald Parham, Corey Linsley being in and out, all of these different things that have happened. Trey Pipkins dealing with his issue with his MCL sprain. I think to navigate through all of that and to play good enough football offensively to give the Chargers a playoff berth, you have to be satisfied with that. But I think there's a feeling that there has to be improvement here over these final 2 weeks to give the Chargers a chance to really contend. And that's honestly how I think he feels. What role will Kyle Van Noy play now with Bosa returning? So, I mean, he's still going to play more snaps than Joey Bosa on the edge until, Bosa works his way back in. Like, I don't think they're just going to throw Joey Bosa back in there for 92% of the snaps his first game back. Like, if they're going to phase him back in before he's ready. And so in that time, Van Noy is going to stay in the same role. You're going to have an extra piece there, so he's going to be playing fewer snaps, but I still see him primarily as an edge guy. And then once Bosa's healthy, they can do a lot of different things with him. I really would see Van Noy playing some edge, obviously, when Bosa is out of the game, or Khalil Mack, to spell Khalil Mack, but I could also see him being utilized in a lot of third down rush packages or second and long rush packages, known passing rush packages, where they can, get him on the interior, showing blitz, showing rush, and dropping into coverage, or showing coverage as an off-ball linebacker and then getting after the quarterback. He's very versatile in that way. And even when he's been playing edge rusher, they've really tried to engineer things where he's on the interior, getting one-on-ones with guards. He's really effective in those spots. And when he can get penetration up the middle against guards, it really, creates a lot of pressure on the edge. And we've seen a bunch of these pressures and sacks where Van Noy's been able to create disruption on the interior. And then that's forced the quarterback to hesitate or step up or try and escape. And it's played right into the hands of the edge rusher. So, once Bosa is back and playing fully, he's going to have more limited snaps, but I see him being utilized really as a third down, known passing, pass rush package type guy, where they can play him in a lot of different spots. They can disguise him because he has the ability to play off ball, and they can even bring him off the edge if they want to. And so that was really the vision when they signed him. And so I think we're going to sort of move back toward, that initial vision now that Bosa is getting healthier. Did Staley change anything in terms of play calling that has played a part in defensive turnaround, or is it all a result of better execution from the players only meetings? So it's all part of it. Like, I think players taking ownership and having accountability has helped, particularly with the run game and on third down. Um, I think part of it is player execution and just playing better and playing better coverage and not having these mental busts that have been issues on a lot of these third and longs and then some of the explosive plays that they've allowed. And then some of it too is that, I don't think they've simplified things. I think that's the wrong word. But as the season progresses, you figure out, okay, these are the things that our guys can execute at a high level, and you lean more into those things. And so the number of packages, the number of different play calls, they're condensing that stuff. That's sort of a natural progression as the season goes along. The way Brandon Staley thinks about defense, he wants as much on his menu as possible. And so they install all of this different stuff throughout OTAs and throughout training camp. And then as the season goes on, you have this full menu to select from. And then as you get further on into the season, you start simplifying things, not necessarily to make it easier on the players, but to focus in on the things that your players can do well, the things that they can execute well. And so I think that's really been a part of it as well, is figuring out what they do well and really leaning into those things. And that's certainly been a factor here over this 3-game stretch. Uh, we have esteemed LA Times columnist Dylan Hernandez here in the stream. Dylan asks, why do you drink so slow? The answer to that question is, when the hops are done, pop is done. That's the mantra around these parts. And so I like to drink slow to give all of the guests here in Hops with Pop the opportunity to ask questions and to make sure we have some time to hang out with each other. You know, if I were to sit here and drink this nice fat tire in 9 minutes, you know, I don't think people would keep coming back to the stream. They'd say, wow, this is way too short and not worth even hopping in there. So, nice casual pace to make sure that we can have some time together. My mom's calling. Should I pick it up? All right. Hey, Mom. I'm doing my live stream. Yeah, so I'll call you back. I picked up the phone on the stream with everybody. Everyone's saying hi to you. My mom and dad both say hi to everybody. All right, I'll call you guys back. All right, bye. Drink a 6-pack on the stream, Dylan says. Here's what happened. During the draft, I drank a bourbon on the stream and things got off the rails a little bit. So we keep it to 1 beer. Make sure we keep it professional on here. No love you to my parents. Oh, I'm going to call them right back. I should have said I love you. Now I feel bad about it. I'm sorry, guys. I was distracted. Call them back now. I'm going to call them back like right after. All right, let's get to some more questions. Derwin status. Derwin was back at practice today. Went through individual drills. Still in the concussion protocol, but we'll see if he practices fully tomorrow. Seems like he's trending in the right direction, but it's hard to tell with concussions. So he's back on the practice field today. That's a good step, and we'll see what happens over the rest of the week. Braden Fajoko's impact. I mean, Braden Fajoko's played fantastic. And I think like we all saw what he was capable of during training camp. Those of you that were able to watch practices, you know, I was obviously at every practice, and there was a reason that he made the 53-man roster. I thought he showed a tremendous amount of improvement as a pass rusher during training camp. And he looked like in that moment a guy that could really have an impact on this team. Obviously, you know, made the 53-man. They ended up, you know, waiving him, re-signing him to the practice squad for procedural things with Christian Covington. But they've needed him, and he's played fantastic, and he's done what, you know, has made him, you know, a rosterable guy in the NFL, which is being a fantastic run defender, playing really sound, playing physical, being really stout on the interior, taking on double teams, making plays, making tackles, all these things. Yeah, he's been steadily improving, and he's been absolutely essential to what the Chargers have done defensively this season because of all of the injuries they've had on the defensive line. He's been a big part of this recent stretch. And so, you know, in my opinion, he should be a part of this team for years to come. Do I do yoga? I did yoga one time I did hot yoga at I think it was Y7. My fiance took me there. Um, I actually kind of enjoyed it, but I haven't been back. The whole like being in a room that's like super hot was not like my favorite thing in the world. So maybe I need to like pivot to like not hot yoga. I just like I like to be able to breathe properly, and I felt like I couldn't breathe when I was in a room that was like a million degrees. Um, but yeah, maybe I should get back and do some yoga. Get centered. Is this your first time covering the playoffs, Pop? It is my first time ever covering a playoff game. I've never covered a playoff team. I covered two dreadful Jets teams in 2015 and 2016. Well, I guess 2015 they were 10-6 and almost made the playoffs. Um, but that was I was like kind of on the beat, kind of not. 2016 and 2017 were two dreadful seasons, and then Todd Bowles got fired. 2018 went to Jacksonville after they made the AFC Championship game and they missed the playoffs. 2019 came to Los Angeles to cover the Chargers after they made the playoffs. That season went up in flames. Phillip Rivers is last year. 2020, Derwin gets hurt. 2-7 start. Lynn gets fired, missed the playoffs. 2021 last year, obviously, chance to make it in Las Vegas, and everyone in this chat knows what happens there. So yes, this is my first time covering the playoffs, and yeah, it should be fun. You know, that's why you get into this business to cover cool stuff. Okay, when does Jasir Taylor play, and who's out when he comes in? It's a good question. So Jasir Taylor has been playing outside corner in base defenses. So base defense in Staley's scheme is so 3 interior defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, 2 linebackers. So that's your 3-4. So technically 2 outside linebackers. He calls them edge rushers, 2 inside linebackers. So there's your 4-3, 2 outside corners, and 2 safeties. So Jasir Taylor has been playing outside corner in base packages. That's really been a function of getting a bigger body and a better tackler on the outside. And Asante Samuel Jr. has been coming off in those packages. And so then Jasir Taylor is on a base package. And then when they move to nickel packages, and they have various nickel packages. So what they call their nickel package is 2 interior defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, 2 linebackers, 2 outside corners, slot corner who's Bryce Callahan, and then 2 safeties. They also play variations of their nickel package where they call it their penny package. So they'll have 3 interior defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, 1 linebacker, 2 outside corners, slot corner, and 2 safeties. And then they'll also play a dime package where you have typically 2 interior defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, 1 linebacker, and then 6 DBs. And so Asante Samuel Jr. has been playing outside in the nickel package, including penny, and then also in dime packages. And then they've been playing Jasir in these base packages just to get a bigger body on the field. And the idea behind that is you play bigger bodies when the other team, when the opposing offense comes out with bigger personnel. So if they have 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, jumbo package, a fullback, any of those types of things, you typically match, they call it, with your base defense to have a better run front, have more bigger bodies out there to defend the run. And so in that base package, they want Jasir Taylor out there because teams pass less frequently out of those offensive personnel packages. And so you want a guy in there, if you're going to see more runs, that's a better tackler and a bigger body. And that's really the thought there. And I also think part of it too is that Jasir Taylor has played really well, right? Like he has made a lot of plays on special teams as a gunner. And then when he was asked to play slot corner against the Dolphins with Bryce Callahan out, he showed up and played outstanding. And we've talked about it on the stream. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle combined for only 4 catches out of the slot in that game. Jasir Taylor played very, very, very well in that game. And so you want to give guys that are playing well and doing the things you're asking them to do an opportunity to play. And this is a smart way to get Jasir Taylor on the field and get him around the ball against runs. And then it's nothing against Asante, but what Asante Samuel Jr. does well is play in coverage and play with instincts and take the football away and get his hands on the ball. And so this is a good way to get both of those guys on the field in roles that make sense for them. How far in the playoffs do you think the Chargers can go? Talked about it a little bit at the start of the stream, but it's contingent on the offense right now. If the defense continues to play at this level, in theory, they'll get better once Joey Bosa's on the field. If the offense can find most of what it was last year, then I think the Chargers are a genuine Super Bowl contender. Like, I don't see any reason why they can't win the whole thing if the offense finds a rhythm. If the offense does not find a rhythm, it's going to be very hard for them to win a playoff game. And so that's why these 2 weeks are so important. They have to figure things out offensively and find a rhythm there. And there are reasons to be optimistic. They've got these skill position players back. It's been 3 games now with both Mike and Keenan back. It's been 2 games with Parham back. And so, they're part of it is, hey, we've got to figure out and get reacclimated to what it looks like when we have all our players out there. They started to run the ball better. And so if they can find a way to make this thing look something similar to what it did last year with all of their pieces back now and get everyone back into a rhythm as they get more reps on the field, then there's reason to believe that the offense will improve. And they still have a guy named Justin Herbert. And every time I've come on here and it feels like a roller coaster with Justin Herbert. I have been very steady with my take on him. He is an elite quarterback. He has been an elite quarterback, and I am never going to doubt him as a player. I've watched every game he's played, and I think you'd be crazy not to believe in him as a quarterback and not to believe in his ability to get this thing on the tracks and find that rhythm. Michael K or Mike Francesa? I'm a Francesa guy. Always have been. Why did Lombardi stop moving Herbert out of the pocket once Keenan and Mike were both back? It's a good question. I don't really have a good answer to it. I asked Joe Lombardi a few questions about it today. It feels like when they are featuring this part of the offense that they're playing well and they're able to move the ball effectively. And when they don't feature it early in games and feature it consistently, I think we've seen some of these poor performances. And I don't think it's like a direct correlation. Like, hey, all you have to do is roll Herbert out more and everything is going to get fixed. But, when Justin is on the move, he's very, very dangerous. And they're having issues right now protecting on the interior. There's been a lot of pressure up the middle. The pressure numbers weren't crazy in the Colts game, but it's been kind of a theme that there's been a lot of pressure up the middle. And when you're struggling to protect on the interior, the best way to mitigate that is to move the pocket and to feature bootlegs and nakeds and get Justin outside the pocket away from that pressure. And so it feels like a natural solution to just make that a bigger part of the offense. It's obviously part of the scheme because we've seen it, and they leaned into those parts of the offense, after Slater went down when they were dealing with some of these protection issues and some of these offensive line injuries in weeks 4 and 5 and beyond that. And we saw that they can make this a feature part of the offense. And it feels like with the way things are going offensively, why not get into these things earlier in the game? Like their first bootleg against the Colts came in on the 3rd play of the 2nd quarter, and they tried that pitch bootleg, and 54 was not fooled and got sacked. And that's part of it too, is when they did try and feature these plays in the Colts game, they were not very successful. But it feels like, Joe Lombardi said today they go into every game with like 5 or 6 pocket movement bootleg plays in the game plan. That doesn't feel like enough to me. Like it feels like it should be a bigger part of the game plan. It should be a bigger part of the playbook. It should be something that the Chargers major in because it is highly effective when they go to it consistently. And I'm not saying that it's that's the one solution, like that, okay, you do this one thing and everything's going to get fixed offensively, but you have to find solutions across the board, and where you can win and where you can find improvements on the margins. That's how you're going to altogether find, a sweeping solution to the offensive problems. And so to me, it feels like they should do more of that. That's what I think. I might be wrong, but it feels like that's one way where they could make things easier on Justin Herbert, mitigate pressure, put him in a position where he's highly effective. And I think those are things that make sense as far as trying to solve the offense. Another thing too is just featuring Mike Williams more. Like he can't have 6 targets in a game. Like, and I understand that, the Colts were down Kenny Moore, their slot defender. Keenan Allen was going to work, and he had 14 targets, 11 catches, he had one of his best games of the season, and it was working, and I understand that. But when this offense is great, they're featuring Mike Williams, they're featuring Keenan Allen. Both of those guys are getting double-digit targets, and they're featuring the rollout game, the pocket movement game, and getting Justin Herbert on the move. Like those, more Mike Williams and more pocket movement and bootlegs, I think, are two increases on the knob that make a lot of sense. Yeah, so if you watch that, so people are asking about the Keenan Allen gadget play. I mean, the guy missed 12 games with a hamstring, 10 games with a hamstring, whatever it was. It's not like when guys come back from injury, all of a sudden they're healthy. Like, they're still dealing with stuff. And so obviously, like you saw in that play, that he didn't stop as fast as he would normally stop. And so I think that's like, he was dealing with a hamstring injury all season. And so obviously that's a factor in how he plays. That was a great play call and an even better throw from Justin Herbert. All right, we'll do 2 more questions. Beer's done. Why isn't Gerald Everett being featured more? He's been a big part of the offense all season. Let me look at it. I haven't pulled up his stats in a while. So yeah, he had 6 targets in week 13, 8 targets in week 14, 6 targets in week 15. It's kind of been, around where he's been at every single game. Yeah, I think it was just it was one game where he, wasn't really featured and didn't get the targets. But I think, like, for the most part, he's been a huge part of the offense. I mean, he set career high in catches, career high in yardage. And so he's had a pretty solid season from a receiving standpoint. And, when you get all these guys back, it's part of what I'm talking about, right? Is like, get Donald Parham back, right? Keenan Allen's back. Mike Williams is back. You have Austin Eckler. Like, there's a lot of guys that need to get the ball in certain situations and in certain game scripts. Like, some guys are just not going to get the targets. I think a lot of it was like all those guys were out and Gerald Everett was one of your best receiving options. But with all these guys back, like, there's going to be games where a specific player doesn't get targets. And like, you can use that to explain the Mike Williams thing. But going into a game, you have to say, okay, these are the guys that have to get the football. And I think, like, the top 3 guys that you say have to get the football every week is Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler. And you start there, and then the targets sort of settle as they will. All right, we'll finish it up with red zone. So I'm seeing Lara is saying good question on red zone above. I want to give that person a shout out if I can see it. Who asked the red zone question? Okay. Tara says that she asked it, or Jonathan asked it. Jonathan. How can the red zone offense improve? All right. So over these last couple games, they've really tried to run the ball in the red zone. And that was like a clear and obvious intention from Brandon Staley and for the offensive staff as a whole. And so in that Titans game, they had 8 red zone snaps and they ran it 8 times and they scored 2 touchdowns. And then I think you saw that carry over into this game where they really wanted to run the football in the red zone. And so they've kind of established it now. They've put it on film that, like, hey, we're going to run the ball in the red zone if you give us the looks that we want. And now I think it's about finding that balance. And so if you get to, first and goal at the 10, I know that you want to run the football in the red zone, but running it on first and goal and second and goal, and then only giving Justin Herbert one opportunity with the ball in his hands. I understand the intention. I understand of sort of wanting to, give your offensive lineman a chance to compete in that area of the field, which is how Brandon Staley, termed it. And that's a thing, running the ball consistently so that your offensive lineman can get off the ball and feel like they can go and attack. I think that is real. But in the red zone, I want to give Justin Herbert as many chances as possible with the ball in his hands, especially when you're in goal to go situations. So I would probably adjust that knob a little bit and start putting the ball in Justin's hands a little bit more. And then additionally, like, you just need playmaking in the red zone. Like, a lot of it and a lot of the production in the red zone is your quarterback using his legs and creating. And that's going to be a big part of improving these red zone issues is just playmaking. Justin Herbert making plays, extending plays, and then getting the ball to your top targets, whether that's Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. And I think Donald Parham's going to obviously make a difference in the red zone, but that's a key area. Like, they have to start scoring the ball there. I think you could use some more creativity in the play calling. I think that you could use some more playmaking. And then for me, just give Justin Herbert as many opportunities in that area of the field as possible. But yeah, like, if there's one issue that I would focus on offensively, it's red zone. They have to find a better way to score the football. All right, we'll close it out there. Appreciate everyone joining. And we will talk on Monday. I kind of like doing the game recaps the day after. It gives me a chance to rewatch the game. We get to talk to Staley on Mondays, and so it gives me a good chance to really, like, collect all of my thoughts before we hop in there and do the recap. So talk to you on Monday, and thanks for everyone for joining. Peace out.